After a long stretch of dormancy, the Silent Hill franchise is making a bold appearance on the current generation of gaming platforms. Silent Hill F might have attracted a bit of concern about the more action-focused gameplay loop Konami and NeoBards are bringing to the table this time around. But if you've been following our coverage of the game, you must know that we believe it's a bold decision that could turn out well for the collaborating studios. But a new combat system isn't the only factor that fuels our enthusiasm for the game. There's a lot to be excited about in Silent Hill F, and I would say that the franchise must attempt to chart a course into previously unexplored waters, being as brave as its protagonists in its attempt to present a modern take on a well-established formula. I believe Konami's latest effort is going to be among 2025's greatest hits, a sentiment that was born from both early previews of the game at Gamescom 2025 and my knowledge of the franchise's past titles. So, what's got me so stoked to dive into the adventures of Hinako, the franchise's new teenage protagonist, and made me suspend my disbelief that a girl with no combat training is able to pull off some very cool moves in the heat of battle? That's what we're here to discuss. Let's dive in. Moving away from Silent Hill. While the new setting of Ebisugoaka might have seemed counterproductive to a franchise looking to find its way back to the spotlight whilst attracting a new generation of gamers who may not have had a chance to learn what made it special in the first place, however, I'd argue that it's precisely that change that's going to make Silent Hill F be appealing in a year that's already seen several outstanding titles. Konami's decision to use Japanese mythology as its source material in a game that aims to tackle a turbulent time period of the nation's history is a great move. Not only does it allow the studio to bring excellent visuals and very creative enemy designs to the table, but it also builds the scope for a narrative that stays true to Silent Hill traditions. Hinako rebelling against societal expectations, an extension of a troubled relationship with an abusive father, is the perfect vehicle for all her inner conflict to manifest itself in ways that can provide interesting twists to the gameplay loop on offer, while also being narratively significant enough to be riveting. Including the spirit realm is another great choice. Having her confront her worst fears in an alternate dimension is kind of a franchise trademark with a very interesting and relevant twist. It could also be the perfect staging ground for Hinako to confront her own assumptions, fears, insecurities, and other aspects of her personality that could very well shape the woman she's set to become, if she survives her time in Ebisugoaka, that is. It's clear that Konami and NeoBards have been quite deliberate in their approach to build the world that Hinako explores, and the threats that she's sure to face down, with us guiding her along her adventure. A fight for sanity. We already touched upon how a few early previewers were concerned that the new combat system on offer could be a bit of a red flag. However, I'd like to differ and argue that NeoBards is a studio with a fair bit of experience in designing solid combat systems. With Konami at its side, that experience is sure to be quite an advantage, allowing the two studios to build an action-focused gameplay loop that feels true to the franchise's traditions, while also managing to take it in a more ambitious new direction. I'd personally prefer an action-oriented approach when it's framed well within a game's narrative context. To that end, Hinako's rebellious nature is the perfect framework to fit her moveset within, making her a protagonist who refuses to let her terror overwhelm her without at least trying to master it first. However, the game's survival horror mechanics are sure to make even the most skilled players use their brains over brawn for the most part, a factor that's exacerbated by mechanics like the focus and sanity meters. It's clear that blind aggression and button mashing are not going to get you very far in Silent Hill F. And I, for one, am thrilled at the possibility of having a combat system worth its salt in a franchise where that particular aspect has often taken a back seat to its introspective spectacle. But how do a great combat system and a new location come together in a way that makes Silent Hill F as appealing to me as it is? I'm delighted to explain. The roots of greatness. We've got to think about what's made Silent Hill a mainstay in modern gaming survival horror genre in the first place. It's a franchise that brings out the best and the worst in its protagonists, forcing them to look inward even as they attempt to make sense of a world that's gone horribly wrong. Eba Sugaoka is a great way to make Hinako examine her own assumptions, and perhaps even confront her trauma in a way that may leave her scarred and battle-weary, but also braver for it. Given the franchise's penchant for examining relevant social issues in the time periods that it is set, the choice of a young female protagonist is already a callback to another one of the franchise's hits. Silent Hill: The Short Message may have been criticized for its combat system, or lack thereof, and an ending that was perhaps not what it could have been, but its examination of how a youngster's peers could be a source of great trauma cannot be understated. It's the kind of complex examination of a theme that other franchises may not want to touch that sets apart Silent Hill games from their peers. The decision to have Hinako confronting the effects of society and an adult with significant ties to her well-being is a great riff off Short Message's theme, allowing the franchise to go big while bringing its past work full circle. And given that this one's a current-gen title, I can't help but feel that there's going to be a lot to unpack once it hits the shelves, and I manage to roll the credits on Hinako's adventure. It could be quite hard-hitting for a younger audience who've perhaps lived through similar experiences, and supported friends on their own parts. The shift from examining the effects of one's peers on their mental state to looking at how the world at large influences them, especially in their formative years, is bound to bring a lot of complex narrative beats that I'm sure are going to hit very hard, and hopefully very fast. Or perhaps a slow-burning narrative is on the cards. We'll have to wait and see. Either way, it's a logical extension of Konami's past work, and a vehicle for the studio to take on a more ambitious approach in its upcoming title. Some final thoughts. Aside from all the factors I've discussed above, I'm also quite intrigued by the game's enemy designs. They're horrifying and morbidly fascinating, presenting unique takes on their inspirations in a way that screams Silent Hill. I'm sure they're going to have me producing a few screams and frightened yelps of my own as they come at me with all of the nastiness that they can muster. Of course, we know that Hinako isn't alone on her adventure. Her peers may not have had enough time to shine in the spotlight of early previews, but are sure to be important parts of the story nonetheless. And of course, the man in the fox mask has me quite intrigued about his role in the story. Speaking of the story, I'm fascinated about Hinako's potential story arc in the game. Is she going to rise from timid teenager to a legit badass in her own right? Is she going to come out of her adventure scarred for life or world-weary, yet wise after she faces down her demons? Is she going to end up on a UFO in some capacity? Could she become her own worst enemy if we, the players, make the wrong choices over the course of her adventure? I can't wait to find out the answers to all of these questions and more when the game finally hits the shelves. And considering all the positive reactions to that Gamescom preview, I believe that, like its protagonist, Silent Hill F is bold and unafraid of defying traditions. It blends exciting new additions with the franchise's biggest strengths, and for that, I'm delighted. So, what are your thoughts on this? Go ahead and share them in the comments below. And if you like this video, please subscribe to the channel and enable all notifications by clicking the bell icon to get new video updates. We upload every day and would really appreciate your support. Thanks for watching.